You can't write me up. This is my father's badge. The metal shield caught the fluorescent light as 19-year-old Brianna Shaw held it out steady in her left hand, confident it would do what words could not. In that brief moment, a traffic stop stopped being about a painted curb and became something heavier, something about power, fear, and entitlement. Across the courtroom, Judge Frank Caprio set his pen down. Not slammed, not thrown, just placed carefully on the bench. That quiet movement told everyone in the room the same thing: this case had crossed a line. Miss Shaw, Judge Caprio said calmly, "This court is not run on borrowed rank." The words hung in the air, not angry, not loud, just final. Brianna shifted in her seat. To her, this still felt like an overreaction. A fire lane used for 2 minutes. A coffee run. A badge shown just to explain who she was. In her world, problems like this usually went away. Someone called. Someone fixed it. Someone with authority smoothed things over. But this courtroom ran on something else. It ran on accountability. Before a single piece of evidence was played, before the body camera audio filled the room, before the truth began stacking up minute by minute, Judge Caprio made one thing clear: no title travels through these doors unless it's earned by the person standing here. And what you're about to witness isn't a judge humiliating a teenager. It's a lesson about how power is supposed to work in America, about why badges don't protect upward, why authority borrowed becomes authority abused, and why mercy, real mercy, never comes cheap. Before we go any further, tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe no one is above the law, no family name, no uniform, no badge, subscribe to Mercy Stories. Because what happens next shows exactly what justice looks like when entitlement finally meets its boundary. It began on a quiet Monday morning, the kind that rarely makes headlines and almost never ends in a courtroom. Westminster Street was already busy by mid-morning. Delivery trucks eased in and out. Pedestrians shuffled past storefronts. Inside Kim's Market, the smell of coffee mixed with the low hum of refrigerators and the soft impatience of people waiting their turn. Outside, the red-painted curb told a simple story: fire lane, no stopping. At 11:19 a.m., Officer Jenna Morales, assigned to traffic and patrol, noticed a white sedan parked squarely in that fire lane. The vehicle was unoccupied. No emergency. No hazard lights. Just a car sitting where it wasn't allowed to sit. 2 minutes later, the driver walked out of the store. She was young, 19 years old, a college student. Brianna Marie Shaw held a cup of coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. To her, this wasn't a violation. It was an inconvenience, something temporary, something small. Officer Morales approached and spoke calmly. She explained that the car was parked in a marked fire lane and needed to be moved immediately. Brianna didn't rush. She didn't apologize. She said she would move in a minute. The officer explained she was issuing a citation anyway. That's when the moment shifted. Instead of reaching for her license and registration, Brianna reached into her bag and produced a captain's badge, a metal shield, not issued to her, not earned by her, but belonging to her father, Captain Thomas Shaw, of the Providence Police Department. "You can't write me up," she said. "This is my father's badge." According to Officer Morales' later narrative, Brianna followed it with something sharper. Something meant to sting. "Write it," she said. "I'll have you working school crossings." To Brianna, it felt like sarcasm, a taunt born from annoyance. To the officer standing in front of her, it felt like a threat. Officer Morales continued writing the citation. Brianna refused to provide her license and registration. She asked if the officer knew who her father was. She implied that consequences could be reversed, that assignments could be changed, that authority could be borrowed. At 11:24 a.m., the citation was completed. From Brianna's point of view, the situation was being blown out of proportion. She would later tell the court she was only there for 2 minutes, that no one was using the fire lane, that campus security had been overly technical in the past too. But Judge Caprio wasn't looking at this as a single moment. He was looking at context. 8 months earlier, Brianna had received a campus parking advisory for stopping in an emergency vehicle zone during a university event. It wasn't criminal. It carried no fine. It was meant to warn, not punish. The advisory noted she refused to move until campus police were called. Standing alone, it meant little. Placed next to Monday morning, it meant something else. A pattern. Back in the courtroom, Judge Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He asked questions, simple ones. Had she parked in a fire lane? Had she refused a lawful order? Had she displayed a badge that wasn't hers? Each answer tightened the frame. This was no longer about coffee. No longer about minutes, no longer about a painted curb. It was about what happens when someone learns too early that rules bend if you know the right name, and whether that lesson would finally be corrected here. By the time Judge Frank Caprio turned the next page of the case file, the room already felt tighter. This wasn't a courtroom full of noise. It was a courtroom full of listening. Your Honor, Melissa Chang, Brianna's attorney, said, carefully rising from her chair, my client is prepared to pay the associated fines and resolve this matter today. She has no prior criminal record. Judge Caprio didn't look up right away. Counselor, he said, this court is not a payment portal. The sentence landed hard. Not because it was harsh, but because it removed the easiest exit. Money would not end this. Status would not end this. Only truth would. Caprio turned his attention back to Brianna. Miss Shaw, when an officer issues a lawful order, compliance isn't optional. And when someone shows a badge that isn't theirs, we need to understand why. He paused, then nodded toward the side of the room. Officer Morales, please read your narrative into the record. Officer Jenna Morales stepped forward. Her voice was calm, professional, unemotional. She read slowly, each word deliberate, as if she understood that tone mattered as much as facts. At 11:17 a.m., I observed a white sedan parked in a marked fire lane in front of Kim's Market on Westminster. The vehicle was unoccupied. At 11:19 a.m., the driver, later identified as Brianna Shaw, exited the store holding a cup of coffee. As the narrative continued, the story sharpened. The refusal to move, the refusal to provide identification, the display of a captain's shield, the words that followed. Write it, she stated. I'll have you working school crossings. A murmur moved through the gallery, then stopped. Judge Caprio looked up. Officer Morales, did you perceive that statement as intimidation? Yes, Your Honor. Brianna leaned forward in her seat, frustration slipping into her voice. It was a taunt. I was annoyed. Caprio didn't argue. He didn't interrupt. He simply turned toward the clerk's desk. Officer Russo, he said, play the relevant portion of the body camera audio. The room went quiet. Static cracked through the speakers. Then Brianna's voice filled the courtroom, sharp-clipped, unmistakable. Write it. I'll have you working school crossings. No context, no tone to soften it, just the words. Judge Caprio waited a beat after the audio ended. Silence did the rest. He turned to the clerk. Miss Reyes, were there any contacts with the court or department regarding this case before today? She checked the log. Yes, Your Honor. 2 calls and 1 voicemail, all from Captain Shaw's office. The courtroom shifted again. What were the timestamps? First call at 11:41 a.m., second at 12:08 p.m., voicemail at 12:23 p.m. Caprio nodded. Please play the voicemail. A steady male voice came through the speaker. This is calling from Captain Shaw's office regarding a small traffic matter involving my daughter. Case number 24-1011-12. I'm looking to resolve this quietly before it proceeds. No threats, no demands, just influence delivered softly. Melissa Chang stood quickly. Your Honor, my client cannot control what her father's office does. This is prejudicial. Overruled, Caprio said evenly. We are not assigning guilt. We are recording facts. He turned back to Brianna. You may not have asked for those calls, he said, but someone believed they would help. That belief didn't come from nowhere. Brianna shifted, her confidence thinning. And for the first time, the courtroom wasn't asking whether a law had been broken. It was asking how deeply entitlement had already taken root. The room didn't erupt. It didn't gasp. It simply went still. Judge Frank Caprio leaned back slightly, his eyes moving from the call log to Brianna, then back again. The timeline was clean. Too clean to ignore. Traffic stop at 11:19 a.m. A text message at 11:23 a.m. The first call from Captain Shaw's office at 11:41 a.m. 22 minutes. That was all it took for influence to enter the picture. Caprio lifted a single page from the file. Miss Reyes, he said, this document was submitted by the prosecution. Please read it into the record. The clerk adjusted the paper. This is a screenshot of a text message sent from Brianna Shaw to an unnamed contact. Timestamped 11:23 a.m. Monday morning. The message reads, got stopped. Used Dad's badge. He said he'll fix it. Brianna's jaw tightened. That was private, she said quietly. It's now evidence, Caprio replied. And evidence doesn't care about privacy. It cares about sequence. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He laid the moments side by side and let them speak. You were stopped, he said. You texted that your father would fix it, and shortly after his office contacted the court. That is not coincidence, that is expectation. Melissa Chang stood again, slower this time. Your Honor. Because of Captain Shaw's public role, we respectfully request that the remainder of this hearing be handled privately. Public proceedings could affect his position and create unnecessary tension within the department. Caprio looked at her steadily. Fairness, he said, doesn't happen behind closed doors. Then he turned back to Brianna. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, he said. Yes or no answers only. The room leaned forward. Did you park in the fire lane? Yes. Did you refuse Officer Morales' request for your license and registration? I was going to. That's not a no. Did you refuse? Yes. Caprio nodded once. Did you display a captain's badge and reference your father's rank in a way Officer Morales perceived as a threat to her assignment? Brianna hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward her lawyer, then back to the bench. Yes, Your Honor. The answer landed heavier than any argument. This feels targeted, Brianna said suddenly. Other people park in fire lanes all the time and don't end up here. Caprio met her gaze unblinking. You're not here because you parked in a fire lane, he said. You're here because when you were confronted with a lawful order, you responded with borrowed authority. He paused. Most people don't wave a captain's badge. Most people don't threaten an officer's job. You weren't targeted. You were answered. He gestured toward the speakerphone. Before I proceed, I want to hear from the business owner affected. The line connected. Howard Kim's voice came through steady and direct. That fire lane matters, Kim said. My delivery truck couldn't pull in. We had an elderly customer waiting for her prescription. She has mobility issues. That lane is for emergencies, not coffee runs. Brianna muttered something under her breath. Caprio caught it immediately. Miss Shaw, he said, if you have something to say it clearly. I said it wasn't 15 minutes. The officer's timestamps say otherwise, Caprio replied, and documentation doesn't argue. The call ended. The evidence now stood complete audio text logs testimony, not one piece dramatic on its own. Together, undeniable. Caprio folded his hands. This is the moment where courts usually choose punishment, he said. But punishment alone doesn't fix patterns. He looked at Brianna not as an adversary, but as a crossroads. And patterns, he added, are exactly what we are here to interrupt. Judge Frank Caprio didn't rush the moment. He sat with the evidence the way a man sits with a truth he knows will change someone's life, not loudly, not cruelly, but completely. The record is clear, he said at last. Officer Morales' account is credible. It is supported by body camera audio, written timestamps, the call log, a text message, and an independent witness. He paused, letting the weight settle. Miss Shaw parked in a marked fire lane blocking emergency access. She refused a lawful order to provide identification. She displayed law enforcement credentials that were not hers, and she referenced her father's rank in a manner perceived as intimidation by a sworn officer. Brianna stared at the table now. The confidence from earlier was gone. What remained was something quieter, something closer to understanding. This court does not decide cases based on titles, connections, or family badges. Caprio continued. Borrowed authority is still misuse of authority. Your father's rank does not extend to you, and it never will. He turned a page. The total fines for these violations amount to $610, $200 for stopping and standing in a fire lane, $150 for refusing a lawful order, $200 for misuse of authority and intimidation, $60 in administrative fees. Brianna exhaled. Caprio raised a hand. I'm not finished. He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. I am suspending $300 of that total conditionally. Not as a favor, as a contract. The room leaned in. If you complete a restorative accountability plan in full and on time, that suspended amount will be forgiven. If you do not, you will pay the full fine. Mercy. Miss Shaw is not a discount. Mercy is an obligation. He began listing the terms, each one deliberate. First, written apologies to Officer Jenna Morales and Howard Kim. Not excuses, not explanations. Apologies that name the harm and acknowledge the lesson. Delivered in person if they consent. Verified by this court. Second, 80 hours of community service with the Providence Police Department's Community Engagement and Youth Safety Division. No public relations work, no cameras, real service, reported directly to the court. Third, participation in 2 school talks titled Respect the Badge, Don't Borrow Authority. Not as a speaker, but as a listener. Fourth, a 60-second public service announcement called Badges Are for Duty, Not for Discounts. Reviewed by this court. No family names, no branding, just truth. Fifth, completion of a certified course on traffic authority and the ethics of law enforcement families. Sixth, a 700-word reflection titled Borrowed Power versus Earned Respect. No slogans, no fluff. Silence followed. Caprio set his pen down again. This court is not here to label you, he said. It is here to correct a pattern before it hardens into character. Privilege hides lessons. Consequences teach them. He leaned back slightly, and today he said the lesson is simple. The badge is not a coupon. Authority is not transferable, and respect is never inherited. The door opened softly near the back of the courtroom. A man in uniform stepped inside mid-50s silver at the temple's posture shaped by decades of command. Captain Thomas Shaw scanned the room once, then walked forward. "Your Honor," he said, measured and controlled. "I'd like to handle this matter internally." Judge Frank Caprio did not stand. "Captain," he replied, calm but absolute. "This is an active hearing. You're welcome to observe. But I will not discuss this case outside the record. With respect, the captain pressed my daughter, used my credentials. That's a department issue." Caprio's eyes sharpened. "This is not your case to manage," he said. "Your rank does not write up here. Department discipline is yours. Judicial transparency is mine." Before the captain could respond, Brianna turned toward him. "Dad," she said quietly, "stop, I did this, not you." The room froze. Caprio spoke once more. "Captain, your authority ends at that door. Step back and let your daughter answer for herself." After a long beat, the captain nodded and moved to the back row. The court moved on. Over the next 8 weeks, Brianna did exactly what the sentence required. Her first apology letter came back rejected. Too much deflection. Not enough accountability. She rewrote it. Officer Jenna Morales agreed to meet her briefly at the station. The conversation was short and uncomfortable. "When you waved that badge," Morales told her, "you made me afraid to do my job." That's not sarcasm. That's intimidation. Howard Kim accepted a written apology, but declined a meeting. His email to the court was simple. She named what she did wrong. That's enough. Brianna completed 80 hours with the Community Engagement and Youth Safety Division. She answered phones, scheduled school safety visits, helped walk-ins. There were no cameras, no posts, no praise. During 2 school talks, she listened as officers explained what it felt like when someone used a relative's badge against them. Every time that happens, one officer said the next traffic stop gets harder. Her first public service announcement was returned. Too polished, too vague. She recorded it again, this time plainly honestly. It was approved. 8 weeks later, Brianna returned to court alone. No lawyer, no father, no shield. Judge Caprio reviewed the file, then looked up. "Summarize your reflection," he said. No script. Brianna stood. "I thought my dad's badge was something I could use when I needed it," she said. "I didn't understand that it stands for his service, not my convenience. When I waved it, I didn't just disrespect an officer. I threatened the process." She paused. "Borrowed power isn't real power," she said. "It's theft." Caprio nodded. "You stopped borrowing authority," he said, "and started earning respect." He signed the order forgiving part of the suspended fine. "Fire lanes," he added, "are for emergencies, not egos." 4 months later, the policies born from that case were in place. An ex parte influence log, an anti-retaliation safeguard, clearer fire lane enforcement. Complaints dropped. Officers reported feeling safer. Brianna's PSA was used quietly in schools, not celebrated but effective. On a quiet Friday evening, Judge Caprio finished his last case of the week. Before leaving, he wrote a sentence on a note card and pinned it behind the bench. "Badges protect downward, not upward." He turned off the lights and locked the door. Justice once again had done its quiet work.